All right, viewers, another day, another leader highlighted the immediate need for Congress to course correct, to introspect. This time, it's none other but then their own ally and seasoned politician Sharad Pawar. The NCP chief dropped a big reality check bombshells on the Gandhis. Pawar has said that the Congress is like an old zamindar, using the analogy of old landlords who pretty much lost their inheritance but still believe they're landlords. On the other hand, the Congress till now has not said anything. The BJP has come out and said Pawar said exactly what's true.
Congress has become weak. Congress's mentality is similar to UP's old zamindars. Another scathing reminder on what the Congress has been reduced to by none other than Congress ally Sharad Pawar. In an exclusive interview to India Today, the NCP chief did not hold back. His party is a part of the UPA. His party is also in alliance with the Congress in Maharashtra. But that has not stopped Pawar from exposing Congress's shortcomings, one after another. Pawar highlighted how the Congress is now a pale shadow of what it was, conceding that the party is today not what it was back in 2004.
मी आता लेफ्ट आणि काँग्रेसचं उदाहरण दिलं, पण 2004 मध्ये जवळपास 4 वर्ष लेफ्टच्या पाठिंब्यावरती काँग्रेस आणि यूपीएने सरकार चालवलं होतं. अशा पद्धतीचं हे अपोजिशन बंगाल आणि केरळमध्ये असताना सुद्धा तर ते सरकार त्यावेळेस चाललं होतं. ममता बॅनर्जी त्या सरकारमध्ये पण होत्या.
त्यावेळेला काँग्रेस हे आत्तासाठी 40 लोक नव्हते. तर काँग्रेसची सेंट 140च्या पेक्षा सुद्धा जास्त होती. आज काँग्रेसची सेंट ही त्यामध्ये फार कमी आहे आणि सगळ्यांचीच कमी आहे.
The NCP chief has even likened Congress to the old zamindars in Uttar Pradesh.
कसं आहे की मागे एकदा मी गोष्ट एक सांगितली होती की उत्तर प्रदेशमध्ये असे जमीनदार आहेत, त्यांच्याकडे मोठी शेती आहे, गावामध्ये त्यांची हवेली असते. लँड सीलिंगचा कायदा आला, त्यांच्या त्या मोठी शेती होती, जमिनी गेल्या, अनेक लोकांच्यात वाचल्या गेल्या. त्यांची हवेली आहे तशी गावात, पण त्या हवेलीची मरामत किंवा दुरुस्ती करण्याची ताकद राहिली नाही, कारण त्या शेतीचं उत्पन्न पहिल्यासारखं राहिलं नाही. काही 1000 एकर जमीन राहायची, तिथं 15 एकर 20 एकर झाली. पण सकाळी जेव्हा तो जमीनदार उठतो आपल्या हवेलीमध्ये आणि बाहेर जेव्हा बघतो आजूबाजूचं हिरवं पीक, तो म्हणतो की हे सगळं माझं होतं, आता नाही आहे.
As expected, the BJP fully endorsed Pawar's comments, saying Congress paid the price for arrogance.
अपने आप को महाराजा मानकर जिस प्रकार से एक परिवार का राज देश के अंदर रखने की मानसिकता उनकी है, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि उनको आईना दिखाने का काम पवार साहब ने किया है कि आप समझ लीजिए लोकतंत्र है, आपकी जमींदारी समाप्त हो चुकी है.
ना तो वो जमींदार बचे हैं और ना उन पर महल बचा है. अब खाली वो झोपड़े की मालिक कांग्रेस पार्टी बनकर रह गई है और उसके लिए वो खुद ही जिम्मेदार है.
The Congress, as expected, has dismissed Pawar's comments, saying every party has highs and lows.
कांग्रेस के इतिहास में ऐसे हालात कई बार आए हैं. पहले भी 1967 में, 1977 में, 1989 में और अभी. ये राजनीतिक दलों के इतिहास में इस तरह की परिस्थिति हमेशा पैदा होती है.
And it's a double blow for Congress, because it was not just Pawar, but also TMC MP Abhishek Banerjee who slammed the grand old party. Amid all the talk of an anti-Modi front, led by the Gandhis, Mamta's nephew Abhishek Banerjee had this to say about Congress.
दूसरे राजनीतिक दलों की तरह, कांग्रेस की तरह, मैं स्पेसिफिकली कह रहा हूँ, या कोई और राजनीतिक दल की तरह घर में बैठ जाएगी, भाई हम और जोर जबरदस्ती के साथ आपके खिलाफ लड़ाई करेंगे और हम वो हर राज्य में जाएंगे जहां आप लोकतंत्र की हत्या किया है.
This harsh reality check for Congress has so far not elicited any reaction from the grand old party. Rahul Gandhi in Jammu has offered no response to Sharad Pawar's remarks.
There are several leaders within the Congress and its allies who have spoken out and pushed for introspection in the grand old party. The Gandhis so far have preferred to look the other way and have ignored such advice. But with an all-important ally and a seasoned politician like Sharad Pawar now highlighting the issue, will it finally trigger the change? With camera person Mahesh More, Kamlesh Sutar in Mumbai for India Today.
All right, viewers, we've sat down and we've taken our three angles which could be questioned in terms of the interview, which has pretty much set the political agenda for the day. Question one that we raised: Sharad Pawar's interview in which he pretty much showed the mirror to the Congress party. Was it an advice or a warning to the Congress? The second big question that we asked: will the Congress, after listening in to an old ally who was very much part of Congress at one point of time, finally introspect? Because their ally sounded frustrated when he said that the party is in denial, it seems. Will the party introspect or still remain in denial? The other question we asked this evening: has Pawar exposed the chinks in the big anti-Modi armor that the united opposition wants to build for 2024? All three questions we're going to be taking to our panelists this evening. Let's cut across immediately and introduce our panelists. We have Mahesh Tapse, NCP spokesperson. I have Sanju Verma, Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson. Rashid Kidwai, political analyst. Rajdeep Sardesai, consulting editor. Sahil Joshi, Mumbai bureau chief. The interview was given to Mumbai Tak and taken by Rajdeep Sardesai and Sahil Joshi. I want to begin with you, Rajdeep. You did speak, there was a long interview for about an hour. What's the sense that you got? Was it a frustrated ally which wanted to show the mirror to the Congress and say, heed my advice, get your house in order? Or was this a warning by a wily politician, which at many times Pawar has been?
Preeti, I want to be fair to Mr. Pawar, our interview and the Congress party. It's a 1 hour, 10-minute interview. Now, in the context of that interview, when we look at those 2 minutes 30, it appears that Mr. Pawar is taking on the Congress. The truth is, and I think I said this yesterday, this is Mr. Pawar, in a way, not sort of taking on the Congress as much as offering the Congress a reality check, a sense of introspection. And what's happened in the 24 hours since we put out the interview reflects perhaps some of the problems of the Congress. A party which essentially, Preeti, still seems in denial. Instead of appreciating that here is an ally who's actually been a congressman all his life, as he admits during our interview, they seem to believe that Mr. Pawar is taking on the Gandhi family. Far from it. The sense I got is that Mr. Pawar recognizes that the Congress needs to be the fulcrum of any opposition alternative to the BJP, but not unless the Congress gets its act together. And I think that's all that Mr. Pawar was suggesting, that look, you are going to have to take people along with you, whether it's Mamta Banerjee, whether it's Sharad Pawar, whether potentially in the future it could be even a Jagan Mohan Reddy. You're going to have to take along people with you. It can't be just focused on one family or one individual. It cannot also be the Congress is seen through, the kind of arrogance that is often associated with the Congress party, ekla chalo re. Those days are gone. So I think Mr. Sharad Pawar is not taking on the Congress as much as offering a mirror to what is the predicament that the opposition has, which is unless the Congress revives, the opposition cannot take on the BJP. Because as Mr. Pawar admitted in the interview, the Congress is the biggest brand nationally after the BJP. And therefore, he believes that there is an opportunity for the Congress to reinvent, especially in COVID times, and thereby become the fulcrum, the magnet of an opposition alliance. And I think he doesn't offer any solutions, and that's the major criticism. But I think he recognizes that the Congress is critical. Its revival is critical in a way to the future of the opposition. But rather than seeing it in that spirit, the Congress people who've spoken today are all attacking Mr. Pawar, saying, look, you've never got more than 10 MPs, you're a regional leader, who are you to tell us how to function? Look, he's 81, I don't think he has any more ambitions left. He's not been healthy in recent times, but he has the willpower and he has the knowledge and the strategy in a way to perhaps offer some hope to the opposition. And that's, that really is what this is all about, to try and see what's the way forward for a brand which for years dominated Indian politics but is struggling to get today.
You know,
so I
Rajdeep,
think, Preeti, it's got to be seen in that context.
Rajdeep, I know you need to go. We're going to ask you just one quick question and then you can go back. A quick question there, Rajdeep. Now, you're saying what he is doing is he's showing the mirror to the Congress. Is the Congress actually going to look at its reflection for real and understand what they are seeing and course correct? Because you followed the party, they've been in denial. It's not the first time somebody's called them out.
Look, the fact is, there are people within the Congress who privately will tell you that they too are worried about where is the party heading. You can't have defeat after defeat without a sense of introspection. You can't have an interim president who essentially is in semi-retirement. You can't have a younger leader who wields all the power without responsibility. Congressmen know these are the problems. Look, this is a party which is inured in a way to power. It doesn't know how to live in the opposition. The rise of the BJP and the rise of Mr. Modi in particular has pushed the Congress on the back foot. And when you're in the opposition, you need to change the way you do your politics. You can't practice your politics as if you are the natural party of power anymore. And I think that's again a message that Mr. Pawar said when he likened it to a zamindari. A zamindari, almost believed it was their divine right to rule. There is no divine right to rule anymore. And I think that's the message that the Congress needs to recognize, not see it as an attack on them as much as a desire on the part of well-wishers. And I see Pawar as a well-wisher in the end of the Congress, as perhaps asking the party to perhaps do some course correction and introspection.
All right, Rajiv, thank you for joining us. You can go back to your Ganesh Chaturthi dinner. I want to now cut across to Sahil Joshi.
No, not dinner. Puja.
Puja, sorry. Ganesh Chaturthi Puja. Yes. Happy Ganesh Chaturthi, Rajdeep. I want to cut across to Sahil, who's also wanting to leave because they both have done this big explosive interview. And Sahil, the fact is, what have been the repercussions, especially where the Maharashtra Congress unit is concerned? What are you picking up? Because till now, there's been a steady silence as expected because he's pretty much criticized the Congress, showed them the mirror, reality check. The Congress has not said anything.
Well, it's pretty interesting the way the Congress in Maharashtra is reacting to what Sharad Pawar had said. It is not the way it used to be earlier when the Congress and NCP ran the government for 15 years together in Maharashtra. Whenever Sharad Pawar used to say anything about Congress, the Congress leaders used to be quick to talk against Mr. Pawar or get back at NCP or Sharad Pawar. But this time they have been really careful. We spoke to Ashok Chavan in the morning. You know what he said? He said that today is Ganesh Chaturthi. It's an auspicious day. And let's not get into who said what today. We asked Vijay Wadettiwar, another senior minister from Congress in the Maharashtra cabinet. He said the same thing. But the Maharashtra Pradesh Congress Committee Chief Nana Patole, Rashid Kidwai can correct me if I'm wrong, that he's supposed to be very close to Rahul Gandhi. And he also started saying that Sharad Pawar is a big leader. I will not be able to comment against him. But I would say, and he continued saying that there are people who got zamindari because of the Congress and they tried to finish off the Sultanate, which he meant by the Congress. There are people who tried to create troubles for the Sultanate of Congress. That's what he tried to say. So he tried to get back at
Stay with me. Stay with me. We have that reaction which is just coming in. Just stay with me for a while. We have the reaction from the Congress that's coming in right now. It seems the Maharashtra Congress unit is speaking in two very different voices, pretty much mirroring what is going on in the Congress right now. The Maharashtra Congress reacts to Sharad Pawar's interview. You have the senior leadership like Prithvi Raj Chavan, Ashok Chavan, who's come out and said, no comments. We don't want to talk about this. On the other hand, you have somebody like a Nana Patole, known to be close to Rahul Gandhi, pretty much his own appointee, coming out and criticizing Sharad Pawar. Let's quickly play out those reactions and I'll go back to Sahil.
शरद पवार एक देशातले मोठे नेते आहेत. आज गणपतीच्या दिवशी तरी मला त्यांच्याबद्दल काही बोलायचं नाही.
यही कहेंगे कि कांग्रेस ने जिन लोगों को जमींदार बनाया, उन लोगों ने इस सल्तनत को खत्म करने की कोशिश की. लेकिन देश की जनता आज भी कांग्रेस के साथ है.
It's very interesting because this is exactly what Sharad Pawar was also talking about, Sahil. The fissures in the Congress as well. You have within the Maharashtra unit, the senior leadership not wanting to take on Pawar, but Nana Patole, an appointee by Rahul Gandhi, criticizing Pawar.
Absolutely. In fact, as Rajdeep was mentioning, it's a 1.5 hour interview. And what led to this answer? It's something we asked him about what Sharad Pawar is planning for 2024. Will the Maharashtra model will be replicated for 2024 elections? And he was talking about the hurdles, why it's being difficult that such kind of model can be replicated, and how it's a time-taking process, and how the Congress is the biggest hurdle in creating that kind of an alternative. While speaking that, he also told us about his experience while making this Maharashtra model, the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi model. And he specifically said that it was the Maharashtra unit, the MLAs from Maharashtra, the leaders from Maharashtra, which almost coaxed the central leadership, forced the central leadership.
Right.
They told the central leadership that this government should happen. He specifically mentioned that how Sonia Gandhi spoke to each MLA, Sonia Gandhi spoke to each important leader from Maharashtra, and finally it maneuvered the Congress's reaction towards forming of MVA. That is something which is very specific. So it clearly shows that while giving the reality check, he also wants to insist that you got the reality check in Maharashtra. You then practically you chose to be with Shiv Sena and NCP to form the government. That is how you should be acting at the center level as well. With 40-45 MLAs, you cannot dictate terms when the question comes for the opposition unity for 2024. That is what is the crux of what Sharad Pawar was trying to imply. That's what I got.
All right, Sahil. Happy Ganesh Chaturthi. You can go back to your puja. I know we've got you both out after that interview. I want to now cut across to our guests. I have Mahesh Tapse from the NCP. I appreciate all the patience. I have Sanju Verma from the BJP spokesperson, and I have Rashid Kidwai as a political analyst. I want to go across to our NCP spokesperson, Mahesh Tapse. Your boss has caused quite a furore now. What did he mean to say? Was this friendly advice, frustrated ally saying, read the writing on the wall, or a warning?
Good evening, Preeti, and a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi to all your viewers. I think Rajdeep Sardes has already mentioned what exactly happened. So all this hue and cry about Mr. Pawar being angry as an ally is not true. The Congress is the grand old daddy amongst all the parties with the maximum and the most contribution to the international freedom struggle. And post the freedom, we got the government was mostly headed by the Congress party. So the modern India has its stamp from the Congress mindset. Mr. Pawar knows his own party, the NCP, he has formed it. He knows the Congress party like the back of his hand. And he has his friends and allies not only in the ruling party but across the political spectrum of this country. So I don't think there is any hatred in the minds of Mr. Pawar and there is any kind of anger or angst. It's just a plain, it's a question raised by Rajiv Sardesai. I have also watched the interview and Sahil was there, of course. It's just a question it was raised and he said that this is the situation. It is there. In fact, when the question was coming whether who would be heading the UPA, Mr. Pawar categorically said that the Congress is the most important party within the UPA, and if anybody has the power to take on to the current incumbent
Mr. Tapse, I'm going to go to Sanju Verma, but I'm going to come back because when he was also asked about the ability of Rahul Gandhi, he says that some people are sensitive about their leadership. So we're going to talk about that because he did hint that he wasn't quite confident about Rahul Gandhi's leadership. We'll come to that, but I'll go to Sanju Verma. Sanju, why were you laughing when Mr. Tapse was saying that he didn't mean it as a warning? It's not that he was trying to say something untoward.
Preeti, I was amused because, the NCP spokesperson obviously was trying to defend the indefensible. As you very rightly said, his boss, Mr. Sharad Pawar, categorically and clearly showed the mirror to the Congress, and I'm sure the Congress party did not like the reflection that they saw therein. The simple point is this. While each of us can continue to interpret Mr. Sharad Pawar's interview in a plethora of ways, the fact remains, Preeti, that Sharad Pawar is no greenhorn. He's the ex-Chief Minister of Maharashtra. He's somebody who's been a career Congress politician, and for almost 2 decades he's been in alliance with the Congress. He's the ex-Union Agriculture Minister when the UPA was in power. So his words do carry weight. And the fact that he compared the Congress to a zamindar who has his haveli but does not have the resources to run that Haveli. He's run out of income. His land holding, which used to be thousands of acres, has shrunk to a few acres. What Mr. Sharad Pawar was trying to say is simple. From being a pan-national party with an India-centric presence, Congress today is reduced to being a small-time satellite vernacular regional party with no locus standi. And one very important thing which he mentioned, or which he, wanted us to interpret was that politics is, yes, about keeping up with the democratic ethos, keeping up with inclusivity, good governance, all that is fine. But at the end of the day, politics is about electoral supremacy. Politics is about the winnability quotient. Politics is about being in satta. And the Congress is not in satta because it refuses to stare at facts in the face. It is suffering from the self-cannibalization syndrome. It is in a self-destructive mode, much like the ostrich which puts its head under the sand and is unwilling to look at reality.
All right, Rashid Kidwai, I want to bring you in and I want to take you through some figures because ultimately it comes down once again, because no matter what he said, the debate is the Congress is in decline and in denial. And correct me if I'm wrong, sir, because what we've done is I've actually sifted through data through the course of the day, and it's amazing the amount of committees the Congress has set up in the last few years after every loss, and there's been absolutely no action. We'll play out those graphics. Now, Mr. Anthony must be really, at his wit's end, because he keeps investigating. There's committee after committee, committee after committee, and there is no action taken at the end of it.
Yeah, Preeti, this is a big problem of the Congress party. You see, the Congress needs surgery when it is, Sonia Gandhi is administering, homeopathy sweet pills. This is a root cause of Congress problem. But Mr. Sharad Pawar is himself being a bundle of contradictions. He left the Congress. He wanted to be, second Lokmanya Tilak when he opposed Sonia Gandhi on grounds of her foreign origins. And within months, there was this government of Congress and NCP in Maharashtra. He benefited 10 years as a union minister under, when political leadership was with Sonia Gandhi and during the UPA years. Look at Mr. Sharad Pawar's own backyard. Last time he became Chief Minister of Maharashtra was when he was in Congress. After that, you look at all successive Lok Sabha elections, his party has not crossed, even double digit in Maharashtra. Maximum number of Lok Sabha seats it won was 9. Problems with Congress are many, but this is not the way to forge opposition unity. Mr. Pawar is a responsible person. He is creating a situation where there could be bad blood between the Congress and its allies for 24, and that would become a kind of, Mr. Pawar tacitly seems to be supporting G23. These are all serious problems of Mr. Pawar and the Congress. So I see a bleak future for the opposition, whether it is Congress or non-India, non-BJP political parties.
Mr. Kidwai, tell me something. Isn't it solely due to Mr. Pawar that the Congress right now is in alliance in Maharashtra with the Shiv Sena? Because if it was up to Mr. Rahul Gandhi, there would have been no alliance. Every day you have the BJP trying to pull you down in Maharashtra. The one person who's keeping it together is Mr. Pawar.
No, I'm not denying Mr. Pawar's political acumen. What I'm saying, Preeti, is Mr. Pawar is himself a very big zamidar. On the one hand, he's saying that Sonia Gandhi ascertained views of every individual Congress MP, Congress MLA before going into this alliance with Shiv Sena and NCP. On the other hand, he is accusing them of being zamidar, of being indifferent, of being being prisoner of the past, of not listening to the party cadre enough. Mr. Pawar should make up his mind whether Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi represent the political leadership of the Congress or not.
Okay, Sanju Verma, I know you want to come in. I just want to go back to the NCP spokesperson. Mahesh Tapse, the allegation is that Mr. Pawar himself is the old landlord or the zamidar. Not the other way around is what Mr. Kidwai is saying.
I want to tell my friend Mr. Rashid Kidwai over here that opposition to Mrs. Gandhi's candidature for the Prime Minister's post way back in 1999 did not mean opposition to the Congress or the ideology of the Congress. So let's get this thing straight first. And that's the reason why immediately we went into polls in Maharashtra. We again passed up with the Congress and we were alliance with the Congress party for good 15 years. Now also post I think in 1990, in 2004, there's the UPA government which came into power. So I think today Sanju Verma also did a lot of research on our leader, Mr. Pawar. I'm so happy that she's really read up on Mr. Pawar and his articulate ways of communicating things politically. So that's a very nice and significant development as of today. But let us understand.
But Mr. Tapse, this interview could also be read as softening its stand on the BJP, giving the olive branch to the BJP. Therefore, the smiles on the other side of the screen by Ms. Sanju Verma.
No, Mr. Pawar has been a congressman for a very long time. Definitely anybody would feel, and since now there is a grand alliance taking shape, meetings in Delhi being conducted, and how to take on to the BJP in the 2024 election, a lot of write-ups coming in, so many things happening up in the wake of it. I mean, there's nothing wrong to self-introspect. Mr. Rashid is right that we NCP couldn't toss more than 10 seats in the party, but yes, we had a limitation. But look at us in our state. Mr. Pawar has his whole grip on the party. In the state of Maharashtra, he has the complete grip on the party. He is the one who has actually stitched this grand Mahavikas Aghadi alliance, and that's the reason why BJP is out of power. Whether this
Rashid Kidwai, that's quite a swipe at the Congress by Mr. Tapse. He's saying at least Mr. Pawar has a full grip on the party. That doesn't say much for the Congress, but I'll come to you. Sanju Verma wants to make a point. Quickly make a point, Ms. Verma.
Thank you, Preeti. Preeti, one thing which I'm surprised, with no offense to Rashid Kidwai, it reminds me of a saying being more Catholic than the Pope and more loyal than the King. Instead of saying that, yes, Rahul Gandhi should introspect under his incompetent leadership, in the last 7 years alone, Preeti, the Congress has lost more than 40 big and small elections. I just want to ask Mr. Kidwai, since he was waxing eloquent about the Congress, tell me one positive and productive thing that Rahul Gandhi did ever since COVID hit us, either during the first wave or the second wave, apart from getting up every day in the morning and playing the proverbial Twitter troll and taking digs at Narendra Modi. Is there one single thing he's done? Another very important thing which nobody seems to be paying heed. Forget about the fact that the Karnataka government a couple of years back, months back, crumbled because of the Congress pulling the rug from under Kumaraswamy's feet. But be it VP Singh, be it Deve Gowda, or be it Inder Kumar Gujral, anybody who knows Indian politics knows that Congress has never played fair with its allies.
Okay.
And I think now the allies are not going to be fooled. That is the big message that Sharad Pawar is trying to showcase through that interview to Rajdeep Sardesai. And just one more thing. Tell me one thing, Preeti. Out of the 52 Lok Sabha seats that the Congress won in 2019, 15 were from Kerala and 8 were from Tamil Nadu, which means more than 43% of the total seats that it won were from just 2 states. And what has Rahul Gandhi or his party done for the welfare of people in Kerala or in Tamil Nadu? Nothing. So the point is, good governance is something that is not simply in the DNA of the Congress.
I want to go.
All it wants is to grab power.
All right, I want to go.
Not share the spoils of power.
Madam, you made your point.
Allies.
Madam, you made your point. I want to go back to Mr. Kidwai. Mr. Kidwai, the point is, with what Sanju Verma said, but I'll also hark back to what Mr. Tapse said. He said in 1999, the opposition wasn't towards the Congress, but Sonia Gandhi. Opposing Sonia Gandhi didn't mean opposing the Congress. Which brings me to the point which we always raise with the decline of the Congress is the Congress cannot look beyond the Gandhis.
Preeti, there are two things. One is that it's very heartening to see that Sanju Verma is so much concerned about Congress and success of Rahul Gandhi. I thought, the Rahul Gandhi's reported non-performance should be pleasing her and her political party.
That's one thing. Let's go one by one. Madam, please. Madam, he gave you the courtesy. Extend the same.
See, the point I am saying is that, see, the breakaway Congress groups have very little. It's not that, nothing is wrong with Congress. Congress is going through a very bad phase. They are facing a very bleak future. There is a crisis of leadership. There is no denying of that fact. But the fact of the matter is, Preeti, we must understand. Look at all regional parties or breakaway groups from the Congress, be it YSR Congress, NCP, Mamata Banerjee's TMC. They all are family-run parties. There is no, in that sense, there is no party constitution, there are no elections, there is no leadership hierarchy. So what I'm saying is, when they point at accusing finger towards Congress, they must look at, apne gariban mein jhaakna chahiye. They must look at their own backyard. That is what I'm saying.
But
This
Mr.
is not a defense of Congress.
But Mr. Kidwai, right now today we are talking about the Congress, and so has one of the Congress's closest ally, which is Sharad Pawar. The fact is, whatever you've just said right now, you know, there is no system, all of that you've said applies to the Congress more right now, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and therefore, Preeti, they are in this mess. Had they followed their own party constitution, I'm talking about Congress party, and have inner party democracy, but unfortunately, if we look around, there are very few political parties, I would say as a political analyst, none, which have inner party democracy. Some political parties are successful electorally, which is BJP is the case at present, and Congress was in the past. But inner party democracy has been non-existent in India.
Well, at least all three of you do agree on the fact, and Mr. Tapse, let's begin with you, that going further, this, entire anti-Modi coalition that one is building, this opposition banding together for 2024 is a far-off dream. There are too many contradictions right now within your own camp to even think of something like that.
Nothing is a dream in politics. A party with 2 members has 303 MPs today in the parliament. So nothing is a dream. It is all up to the people, and I'm sure that 2024 will be very different for the BJP than 2019 and 2014. Yes, certain introspection regarding the UPA members is very much required, and Mr. Pawar has been hinting on all these things, whether the farm issue or so many other things which happened in the party, and there is nothing wrong to talk right sense amongst us. I mean, if Mr. Pawar has made a categorical statement, I don't see any senior leader within the Congress party opposing it. In fact, there is a lot of introspection happening at all levels. We are introspecting our party at our level, the Shiv Sena, the BJP, everybody does. So Mr. Pawar, like I said, 1919 was the different reason why we had to break away from the Congress. In fact, Mr. Pawar did not break away from the Congress. He was removed from the Congress for his opposition only to the candidature of Mrs. Gandhi as the Prime Minister of the country.
But he also said in the interview, said in this interview that opposition unity right now is full of contradictions. It's not possible, at least at this point of time. He did say that in the interview.
That is what he said when Rajiv asked him whether an MBA model can be replicated at the national level. In context to that, he said, Jesse, every state has a different dynamics. Like
Sanju Verma, you wanted to, let's just take final comments. Sanju Verma, quickly, come in.
Goa has a different dynamics. Kerala has a different dynamics.
Okay, please, we heard you.
Different dynamics.
Okay, one second. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. Preeti, thank you. Preeti, I'll just quickly sum up by saying this. That 1998 was the year when Sonia Gandhi took charge as the Congress president, and barring a brief period when Rahul Gandhi stepped in only to step out. For 23 long years, we all know that the Congress has had only one president, Sonia Gandhi. Internal democracy has been thrown out of the window. On a scale of 1 to 10, does Congress suffer from intellectual arrogance? I would say yes, 10 on 10. Does it have ideological conviction? The score is 0 out of 10. Does it believe in internal party democracy? Score is 0 out of 10. Does it have a common minimum program? 0 out of 10. Does it have organizational skill sets? 0 out of 10. Is Rahul Gandhi the future of Congress? 0 out of 10. But he's a great mascot for the BJP. And I just end by saying, look at Maharashtra. Do you know Preeti, Nana Patole, Bhai Jagtap, Milind Deora, Sanjay Nirupam, Prithviraj Chauhan, Ashok Chauhan? There are half a dozen people waiting to be the chief minister. In Chhattisgarh, you have Bhupesh Baghel and T.S. Singhdeo at each other's throats. In Punjab, Captain Amrinder Singh and Sidhu. No love lost between them. What kind of a party is this?
Madam, that's not okay.
Control on his subordinates.
That cuts both ways, because if we start counting what's happening in the BJP, but that's a matter of another debate. Okay, Mr. Kidwai, quickly, you wanted to have a word in. Will the Congress, I want to ask you. Finally, introspect. Go ahead,
I'm very surprised. A very fundamental point has not been made in this entire debate. See, why Sharad Pawar ko gussa kyun aata hai? Why is he making this kind of, unkind cuts? Mr. Pawar perhaps wanted to head, to become UPA chairperson or UPA convener and bring about this opposition unity. Now that has not happened. And that's the reason perhaps why he's saying all these things.
Sir, that
he
would mean,
so you take that mantle of leadership.
Does that mean the Congress shouldn't introspect?
Short of it.
Shouldn't think the Congress should course correct?
I want to
Because
correct
that's
Mr.
not an
Kinway
issue.
over here.
If Mr. Pawar is
has never
given,
said that he wants to become head of
a
the
president,
UPA.
I mean, chairmanship
I want
of
to correct
UPA.
Mr.
He will
Kinway
Okay,
over
Mr.
here.
Tapse wanted to come in. Okay, I need to
in
close
praise
the
of
debate, but Mr. Tapse,
Rashid
quickly,
Kidwai.
10 seconds,
I
sir.
want to correct Mr. Rashid Kidwai that Pawar Sahab never wanted, he has never said or never made it very clear that he wants to be the convener or the president of the UPA or the chairman of the UPA. The Congress, which is the largest party and has the maximum number of MPs in the parliament as of now, is heading the UPA, and credibly we are doing a good job as the UPA. Internally, how party fares is up to the party of that and the leadership of that party to judge, assess and evaluate how the party is
All right,
faring in
gentlemen
local
and Ms. Verma, appreciate you all for joining us. We've terribly run out of time. Will the Congress introspect, course correct? Well, at least history stands testimony that no. And what also is the latest example of that is the fact that from the Maharashtra Congress unit, after this explosive interview, there have been two very contradictory reactions. The old guard refusing to say anything against Mr. Pawar, the likes of Nana Patole, appointees of Rahul Gandhi, criticizing Mr. Pawar. With that,